Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Walt Bauer, and I'm the Pre-Service Training Coordinator at the Human Development Institute at the University of Kentucky. Welcome to the Human Development Institute's third fall seminar in the HDI seminar series. My pronouns are he, him, his. My brief visual description is I am a white male wearing glasses with hazel eyes and a blue collared shirt with a blue and red tie. My virtual background is a three-story brick building that has offices for the Human Development Institute on the University of Kentucky campus. We use Zoom for our virtual platform. Our speakers will provide an opportunity for questions today. We welcome questions from all of our participants. Please type your questions for our speakers in the Q&A box for a robust question and answer session. If you hover over the bottom of your Zoom screen on the Zoom toolbar is the Q&A option. We have real-time captioning for the webinar in the closed captioning feature. Turn on the captioning by clicking on the closed caption button at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and then clicking Show Subtitle. Should you have any questions about CEUs, you can contact me. My email address is walt.bauer@uky.edu. Again, my email address is walt.bauer@uky.edu. We will have a 5-minute break at the midpoint of the seminar. Please take a moment to complete our brief evaluation. You will receive an email that provides a link to access the session evaluation after the seminar. It is helpful as we plan for upcoming webinars. The title of the seminar is A Panel of Kentucky Len Self-Advocate Trainees. Our panelists are Caleb Rader, is a 2025 graduate of the Kentucky Len. Six Huddleston is a 2024 graduate of the Kentucky Lend. Micah P. Cirquilla is a 2023 graduate of the Kentucky Lend. And Morgan Turner is a 2022 graduate of the Kentucky Lend. Bev Harp is our Lend Self-Advocate faculty mentor and our moderator for today. I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Rachel Womack, the Lend and Training Director at the University of Kentucky's Human Development Institute, to get us started. Dr. Womack,
Thank you so much, Dr. Bauer, and bear with me for just a second. I'm going to share a brief slideshow.
We can see your screen, Dr. Womack.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get it to go into presentation mode for us. All right. Okay, well, again, thank you for being here today and welcome to our discussion of the experiences of our Lend Self-Advocate trainees. To get us started, I'm going to talk just a little bit about what the Kentucky Lend program is, how we operate, who are included as trainees in our Lend program, and a couple other pieces of background information that I think will really help set the stage for our panelists and their discussion. As Dr. Bauer mentioned, I serve as the Lend Director. I've been serving in this role for the last 2 years, and I noticed Caroline Gooden is also on the call today. She was our Lend Director for the first 3 years of our grant. So happy to have you here as well, Caroline. All right, so what is the Kentucky Lend program? Lend stands for Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental and Other Related Disabilities. Clearly that's a mouthful. That's why we call it the Kentucky Lend program. It is a partnership between the University of Kentucky's Human Development Institute, Eastern Kentucky University, and the University of Louisville. Our Lend is one of 60 Lend programs across the nation. We are all funded through federal HRSA grants, and we are currently in the 5th year of a 5-year Lend grant cycle. So certainly we are hoping for the opportunity to apply for another 5 years of Lend funding. And at the same time, we're very excited and happy to be wrapping up our last year of the current Lend grant. All Lend programs, or at least most Lend programs, operate within University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, or UCEDs, such as HDI. And many of those collaborate with local university hospitals and or healthcare centers. Ours does that very thing. So our University of Kentucky partners include the MAC clinic, the Multidisciplinary Autism Assessment Clinic through UK Healthcare. We also work with Norton Children's, and we work with Ocean, the Office for Children with Special Healthcare Needs, with some of our university or Eastern Kentucky University Lind faculty members. A little bit about the mission of our Lind program. All Lind programs across the country share an overall mission of improving the health of infants, children, and adolescents with neurodevelopmental and related disabilities. There's a strong focus on autism, but autism is not the only diagnosis that we focus on in the Lind program. We do have a goal to increase the number of professionals and advocates with the knowledge and skills to provide evidence-based screening, diagnosis, and support of people with developmental disabilities and their family members. The Lind is a multidisciplinary program. So as many of you know, and as you'll learn more about today, we do include self-advocates with neurodevelopmental disabilities as trainees in our program, as well as family members of individuals with neurodevelopmental disabilities. Besides those two groups, we also include graduate students from all three of the institutions that I mentioned in a variety of related disciplines. So everything from psychology to physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, special education, social work. We've had a music therapy trainee before. So really key is this interdisciplinary collaboration piece. So what does the training look like? Well, all of our Lind trainees commit to a 1-year intensive training experience with us that includes at least 300 practicum hours. All of our trainees complete rotations in self-advocacy and rotations in family advocacy, as well as a variety of other practicum experiences that are geared towards their academic discipline, as well as their interests and experiences. So those could be clinical in nature, they could be advocacy based. It can include participation in one-time opportunities like the seminar that we're all on today, research opportunities, and more. All of our Lind trainees also participate in weekly class sessions on Fridays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., where we cover a wide variety of disability-related topics, and they meet monthly with their assigned faculty mentors. There are several benefits for trainees who are involved in the Kentucky Lind or in other Lind programs. A big one is the opportunity to learn from experts across Kentucky and across the nation. So we do have faculty at all three of our institutions who are leaders in the field, several of whom come from the Human Development Institute, but our trainees also learn from representatives in state agencies and advocates and professionals at a national level as well. There's that personalized mentoring piece. So all of our Lind trainees meet regularly with a mentor in the same or a similar discipline to theirs. They have the opportunity to learn in an open, collaborative, and interdisciplinary setting. Most of our Lind activities and assignments are interdisciplinary in nature, and so our self-advocates have the opportunity to work with family members and with graduate students and so on. All of our Lind trainees receive a fellowship that helps to offset the cost of participation in this program. And our Lind trainees become part of a national network. We are consistently providing opportunities for our trainees to collaborate with other trainees and faculty from programs across the country, whether that be participation in conferences or in research or in advocacy, or just events like this one. So lots of benefits for our Lind trainees. I believe that is my last slide. It sure is. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I will turn it over to Bev Harp, our moderator for today's panel.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I am Bev Harp, and as Dr. Bauer said, I'm the self-advocate faculty member for the Lind. We're now in our 5th year. And today we're going to be talking to the self-advocate trainees from previous years and hear about how their experiences have been with the Lind and what they're doing now. So we'll get started with Morgan Turner, who was our very first ever Kentucky Lind Self Advocate trainee. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started the Lind?
Yeah, thanks, Bev. So, my name is Morgan Turner. I am a program education assistant at the Human Development Institute. I am a Special Olympics athlete, athlete ambassador, and health messenger. And I was born with abnormal legs, so I wear prosthetics on both legs. Abnormal left hand, so I have three fingers on my left hand. And I was born with hydrocephalus, which affects how I process things. And how I learned about Lind um, was from work.
Thank you, Morgan. Let's move on to Micah Peace or Kia. Um, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you were doing before the Lind?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Micah P. Sorkia. I am a researcher, educator, and community organizer from Louisville, Kentucky. And back back when I did the Lend, I was transitioning out of working in a school and into a career as a community organizer. I was doing a lot of organizing here in the local autistic community and the broader disability community. And I found out about the Lend because through a friend of mine who had done it in another state, a friend of mine who's a researcher and an OT, Ariel Schwartz. Told me about it and told me that I might be a good fit because a lot of programs had trouble finding self-advocates. So,
Thank you. Six Huddleston, same question.
Hiya, my name is Six Huddleston. I'm a self-advocate. I have a blog called Regarding Gruber, and I've written and illustrated several stories, including a coloring book of children in long-term treatment from substance abuse. And before Lynn, I was agoraphobic and rarely left the house.
Thank you. How about you, Caleb? Caleb Rader.
Hi, I'm Caleb Rader. I'm autistic. I'm currently a doctoral student for Eastern Kentucky University, and before I was doing the LEND program, I was working for the Department of Behavioral Health for Developmental and Intellectual Disabilities, which was such a long name, so we just call it the Department of Behavioral Health. We love acronyms here in Kentucky, as you can tell. And I heard about the Lend by a professor who recommended me for the program.
Thank you, Caleb. I noticed in the chat introductions that we have a couple more self-advocates here attending. You're welcome to put your thoughts down in the chat, and Dr. Bauer will read any questions and comments that come in between the questions. Anyone else is also welcome to ask questions and participate, but I especially wanted to invite those others who have been a part of the Lind um, as a Lind Fellow. So our next question is, what made you want, why did you decide you wanted to do this? What drew you into the Lind program? Morgan?
Yeah, so what made me want to join the Lind is, just to try something new. Um, I'm always up for a challenge and just to see if I could do it. And I've loved it.
Thank you. Micah, what brings you to the Lind? What was your motivation?
I think beyond just being kind of a big nerd and like somebody who loves a class and loves a discussion, um, I think what really drew me in the most was that um I had already worked in the disability community for about 5 years when I uh, joined the Lend. And how do I say this? It's like I was aware, I had this like sense that I didn't know what I didn't know still. And that there are just so many, like Caleb mentioned, we love acronyms. There are so many different agencies and systems and silos that don't always talk to each other, don't always connect. And like I have my own lived experience, but I really wanted to understand much more what was out there, and the experiences that folks that we're having today, where versus, my own growing up as a kid, um, with disabilities. So that was what drew me to really join in.
Thank you, Micah. How about you, Six?
I had been attending CASA meetings, which I believe is Kentucky Autism Spectrum Alliance. And several of the other members there had been a part of LIND, and they suggested that we, the other members of the group, check it out. And I follow suggestions, so I did that.
Thanks. Caleb?
For me, growing up, I had an undergraduate degree in psychology, and I had actually had an interest in disability, specifically autism and suicide prevention. But growing up in that environment, although I'm very grateful for the education that I had, it was very restricted to that psychological lens of disability. And I really wanted to sort of grow more as a person and learn about disability from all sorts of different perspectives, and especially from a self-advocacy perspective, which I actually did not grow up really having.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Do we have any comments or
We
questions that need to be?
we do, Bev. We have two introductions from two self-advocates. The first is from Kat. Kat says, "Hi, I'm a current Kentucky Lend trainee and self-advocate, also in graduate school for clinical mental health counseling at the University of Kentucky. Welcome, Kat." We also have an introduction from Anna. Anna says, "Hi, I guess I'll introduce myself too. Anna Holt, current self-advocate tr Lend trainee in the Stony Brook Lend site. There's almost the whole Stony Brook Lend self-advocate cohort here today in the audience. Welcome, Anna."
Wow. Welcome, Anna, and welcome all of Stony Brook.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
August August says, "Woohoo!" Micah says, "A watch party. We love it. Welcome, Anna and crew."
Thank you very much. All right. So the Lind is a competitive program. So each year we've had more and more applicants as we become more known. Um, we had quite a few self-advocates apply the past few years here. What was it like for you all? I'm wondering what putting together the application and waiting, um, all the stuff you had to pull together, your interview. What was that experience like for you? Morgan, do you want to go first for this?
Um, Honestly, I can't remember a whole lot about it, so I may have to pass on this one.
Okay, fair enough. Micah?
I remember the gathering of things being a little bit hectic because I am not always good at doing things like keeping my resume caught up. Um, but I remember most things being pretty easy, the hardest thing being to wait. And I also remember being really, really nervous for my interview, but then as soon as I got into it, and just like talked to you and Dr. Gooden and I think one other, maybe Dr. Bauer, I don't remember, and immediately was like relieved. It was much less intense than I imagined it to be, even though it is very competitive and like it's a very high achievement and honor, but the people were very warm and welcoming. So that was Good.
Thanks. Yeah, we always wish that we could take everybody. These are really hard decisions to make each year. Six, what was that period like for you?
I don't really remember either, Morgan, how the applying was like, and I didn't actually know that I was being interviewed for the program. I thought I was just being given an opportunity to ask some questions, so I was kind of shocked when I found out it was an interview.
Interesting. Caleb, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with getting started?
It was terrifying. So uh, I remember getting everything together because when I was applying to Lend, I was going straight out of undergrad. And so I was compiling everything together. Like Micah said, it was very hectic because I was getting my CV ready for the first time. I was balancing working for the Department of Behavioral Health and I actually remember originally, I actually didn't get into the program, and I reached out and asked, like, hey, I understand I didn't get in, but is there anything that I can do to continue working with HDI? And then later, I actually got a thing saying that an opportunity did open up, and that's how I actually got accepted into the program. And I was crying on the phone. Dr. Womack can attest to that when she called me. I cried a lot. Very happy about it.
Caleb, I think you were the most enthusiastic student that we've ever had coming straight in the door. No one else, I don't think, had quite that emotional output that we were able to see. So I'm so glad that you got in.
Bev, we have two comments in the chat. The first comment is from Anne, and Anne has an introduction. Anne says, "Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm a mentor in the College and Career Studies program at the University of Kentucky and working with Aaron. Welcome, Anne."
Ann Switzer, good to see you here.
Good to see you, Beth.
And Stacy says, "I love that story," in reference to Caleb's story.
Okay, so my next question for you all, what surprised you about the program? Was it pretty much like you thought it would be or very different? Morgan?
Yeah, I'd say it was different in a good way. Just so many passionate self advocates that would be able to tell their story or tell someone else's story from their experience. So and then also it kind of surprised me being in a like a small group, which I love. I work better in a small group kind of environment. So that that surprised me in a good way too, which I liked all of that.
Excellent. Micah, what surprised you about the Lind?
A lot. There were things that were like I expected. Like we learned so much. But I think like one of the things that surprised me the most was just how much it like drinking from a fire hose of information it kind of was. I am somebody who likes to get into things really, really deep and like really understand how they work and really think about why they're that way. And as advocates, part of what we do is challenge and push for progress and how things can be better. So I like to spend time reflecting on things like that. And there wasn't as much space for that kind of like real like engagement with a lot of the ideas and stuff that I expected. And so I struggled with that so at times, because things were just presented like, well, this is how it is. And on one hand, that is what I came in to learn. I did want to understand the service landscape and what folks are dealing with. But also, I wanted to have a conversation about why and what we can do better, especially from the vantage point of lived experience as people who have experienced these kinds of um, services and settings and things. And in like a grad seminar kind of setting, I think that I was expecting a little more of that. Um, I will say another thing that surprised me was just how much the folks who were like running the show listened to me in that regard and allowed things to evolve and allowed discussion and questions and things that were coming up, like Morgan said, in within our small group, allowed that to shape things as we went on. And I was so grateful for that. Because I don't think that, like, I work at another university and I know that that is not that's not typical. You know, I went to college. Most professors did not want to even implement my reasonable accommodations that I had a letter for, you know, and so I was really surprised by that in a really good way.
Thank you, Micah. Six, were there any surprises at all?
Yeah, there were two. Number one, a big one. I did not know this was a paid position. I had assumed that it was volunteer and I was hoping to get some free food, maybe a gift card. I did not expect to get paid. That was really overwhelming when in the interview they told me about that. Also, very cool and legitimately life changing. And two, it was nothing like I expected, but really I had no idea what was going on much of the time. I was in graduate level classes despite not having been in school for 2 decades. I did not know how to navigate the school system. I had not understood what was expected of me. It really wasn't until I was out of the program and reflected back that I kind of got an idea of what I should have been doing or what was actually expected of me.
Thank you. How about you, Caleb?
It was very different for me. I was very surprised by how different it was, especially from what I expected average coursework to like, because my only frame of experience was undergraduate work. Um, And so, and in undergraduate work, you're kind of just, there's not a lot of, I don't know how to explain it, but like it's just a very different environment from when you went into like the Len program and like how that coursework looks, especially from a graduate lens. And like Micah, I was very surprised at how much I felt valued because especially in like an undergrad stuff when questions were asked or like when things were asked, sometimes you would get that sort of like very like this is just how it is. And although that was still like some of the experience, I still felt like I was heard in some regard. So that was honestly very meaningful. And something that really surprised me is that I actually didn't know how much time I was going to be spending with Bev. And it was an absolutely amazing time. Like just being able to learn so much about like advocacy, what it means, and like the history behind it, because that was something that like I never had the opportunity to encounter. So it was just a really good experience in that regard.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments and Micah's too about the flexibility and uh, I would say that each of you has left a mark on the land and has changed it in a significant way. Do we have any more comments to be read?
We do have a comment from Kat. Kat says, I'm big on interrupting. Currently, Len's staff and students have been receiving my nonstop chattering with open ears, as much as they can tolerate, at least. I also agree with Caleb that my views feel valued. Yes, I haven't gotten that anywhere else. Micah adds, same. The way you know I'm really paying attention and engaged with the subject is when I have something to say about it.
Excellent. So now I'm going to ask you about what was the most difficult part of your experience and what was the most rewarding part of your experience with the Lind? Morgan, what was difficult for you?
Um, so technology is not my friend, is definitely not my strong suit. So just having like your papers or your assignment having to go on some other website and like send it to that. That was probably um, the most challenging for me, just because, like I said, technology and me, we don't get along. But then the whole thing was rewarding because, again, I'm a people person, so I like to meet new people and learn about them. But also, again, all the self advocates being so passionate and hearing all of their stories.
Thank you, Morgan. Micah, what was difficult about your experience with the Lend, and what was rewarding about it?
What was difficult was one thing that was difficult was managing the amount of work and practicum hours and also regular, like I was transitioning into a really demanding organizing position. And so juggling all of that was really like I truly underestimated how much actual work there would also go with the practicums. And so that put my executive function abilities to the test. And I was very grateful for Dr. Gooden and your support in particular and flexibility with some deadlines and getting things done. Because that was a very big challenge for me. The other thing that I struggled with and was grateful that people for the ways that my struggle was met was I think I was one of the earlier, I think Morgan and I were in the earlier Lend cohorts in the grant. And some of the approaches towards self-advocates were not quite there yet, I think. And it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like anybody was being mean or anybody was being intentionally ableist. It was just more of like, this is the way we've always done things, and it wasn't super considered. Um, and there were several conversations where I was really challenged in the emotional kind of reactions that I was having and how to like stay grounded and communicate that because I guess I can give a little more insight into that when I share like one of the biggest things I learned later but really finding ways to advocate for the value of the self-advocate viewpoint and even just like a critical lens on disability, even if it it tried all of my everything, whatever put whatever your higher power or strength or whatever is there. But I kept coming back, and you supported me. And as you said, I'm grateful for the ways that I think that it has shaped the Lend. Um, and it was hard to hear classmates and stuff kind of say things that were just normal to them, but actually were very ableist. And to know like these are folks who are being prepared to go into frontline professions working with very young people with disabilities. And as somebody who worked with little kids with disabilities, I wasn't okay with that. So it was a very long-winded answer. Um,
No, that was a great answer. Um, all right, we'll move on to six then. What did you find difficult about the Lend, and what did you find most rewarding?
Two things were most difficult. One, like Morgan, the coursework and navigating the school system. I really had no idea what was going on there. And then also I was given an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. for the Lynn conference, and I was without a dedicated support person. And the most rewarding part was getting to know Bev and Dr. Gooden, two awesome people who have remained in my life well after my time in Lind ended.
Thank you. I'm really glad to know you as well. Caleb, what did you find difficult about the Lend experience, and what did you find most rewarding?
For me, it was the first time I really had to like tackle my work-life balance because it was me tackling a job and then tackling the Lend program because I had these two different things happening at once. That really challenged me emotionally because especially since my other job, what I was working in was suicide prevention. So I was working with these two things and I had to really learn how to balance my work and my life and try to take time for myself so I didn't get burnout. And another thing that was challenging for me was I didn't have my license at the time. So I had to depend on other people to get to places if there was like a conference or stuff like that. But I was thankful that the Lend was able to allow me to come in over Zoom so that I could attend classes, and they had things implemented to make sure that I was still at least heard, or when I had something in chat or when I was saying something. It was very rewarding, however, because I honestly, when I actually started to get into like the advocacy perspective, I felt I felt a part of myself unlock that I've never had connected with before, especially since I was actually invited to a KASA meeting. I remember being there for the first time and we were just able to talk about special interests and like our things that brought us joy. And I've never had that with anyone else before. And I remember actually tearing up in the middle of the meeting because I've never had that before. And it was honestly an amazing experience of being able to make all of these connections that I never would have been able to make otherwise.
Thank you. I think that's like an almost universal experience for um, autistic young adults and older adults who may not have had other autistic friends growing up. To find others like ourselves is just really, it feels like a whole new world. And to see that happen with you and with some of the others, that's probably the most rewarding thing for me, to see people coming in and finding community. I think there was a comment or a question,
We
maybe.
we do have a comment and a question in the chat. This is from August, and August question is, how did you deal with executive functioning issues?
This is a very good question. Um, a lot of communication. This is where I got lots and lots of practice reaching out for help. As we I think kind of discussed a little bit in the chat, certain college experiences can really challenge you in that and make you not want to do it. But the warmth and support that I was met with in the Lend really was encouraging in that way. So I did a lot of reaching out and like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Gooden, this is going to be late. Is that okay? Can I turn it in on this day? Um, I also leaned really strongly on Bev, who spent a lot of time meeting with me outside of class. Thank you, Bev, for doing that, because she would help me to I do really well with timelines, even to this day. Like, if I don't write it down by hand, it disappears into the computer ether universe. It just is gone. So I have to make like a visual schedule of this is the week, this is everything that's due for the week, these are all the tasks that are ongoing. And this literally started when I did the Lend. This is how I survived because it was so many things to juggle with doing this and with working. Um that if I'm the kind of autistic person where I have to find a way to get my hands physically on something for my brain to hold on to it. And so that is what worked for me. Another piece was a visual calendar a whiteboard that I put on the wall. And again, spent a lot of time each week physically updating, manipulating movement, and being able to like get as close to grabbing an idea and moving it around is really big for me.
Yes, I get this, Micah. But my question is, how do you deal with it after that one day where you just don't feel like doing it and you skip it, and then the next day the whole pattern unravels?
That is another excellent question. And this is also the Lend, because of the intensity of it, was the place. I'm so grateful that this happened very early in my career, that I got to do this very early in my career, because it also taught me what I can truly let slide. And often it wasn't something for this class. There were a couple of things that I just didn't turn in, and I'm sorry, Dr. Gooden and Bev. Um, but there were, in my personal life, I learned which emails can go unanswered, and just I can do the little emoji at the top of the thing that shows you acknowledged it. Um, I learned how, if I do just drop something like that, how to disentangle it from the rest of the system I set up, and how to let it go without getting stuck, so to speak. I still get stuck. That's part of executive dysfunction, but I learned how one way to move forward when, and to say, well, that's over. There's just nothing I can do. So
Yeah,
I think that's a skill.
thanks. Yeah, executive functioning, for anybody who's not exactly sure what we're talking about, that's how we deal with planning and organizing things, being on time, turning stuff in, not forgetting. Um, it's something that I struggle with myself, and I always appreciate hearing any concrete advice about it.
We have an introduction in the chat, and this is from Ella. Hi, I'm Ella Rickards. I am an upcoming graduate in the College and Career Studies, and like Anne, I am working with Aaron. But I'm still working on getting my certification in the Universal Design 2-year certificate program and graduating in May of 2026. For one of my classes, I am working on an online program and getting most of my HD hours with Dr. Rachel Womack. But as you guys may know or not, others know, but I have a disability called chromosome deletion. It is rare and there is not a match for me, but for my outside life of college, I worked with Morgan Turner with Special Olympics.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
Hey y'all.
Hey,
Hey. I know Morgan well. I know Womack well. People who are in like the HDI program, so y'all good here.
All right. Thank you.
We have a comment from Kat. I've been calling these moments impromptu professional development. So much respect to self-advocates for trying to help and forcing themselves to have top-tier emotional regulation abilities.
Thank you. All
And we
right.
have a well,
Oh, go ahead.
okay. Okay. We have a comment from Anna. That's so important, Micah. What were the ways you learned? We've run into some of that old school medical model versus self-advocate perspective in our work so far, and think we'd love to get to know your tips for addressing those normal to them, but really dysregulating to us as self-advocate perspectives. Micah responded, we're going to talk about the most important things we learned in a moment, but I want to lift up and bookmark your other question of tips for addressing those moments of kind of casual ableism for other self-advocates for our Q&A time. Brooklyn says, I do not do well with deadlines at all. August says, any advice for having motivation when most things are online?
Motivation. Anybody have any tips for dealing with the fact that everything's online and it's much harder to engage with? Yes, Caleb?
I had to treat myself so much with little things. Whether it was just like spending time and being like, yeah, as Kat said in the chat, like a bunch of like special interest time. That was my deal. It was Pokemon. It was me hugging my plushies. It was me like, it was really just doing my best to be like, okay, I did this thing. I would also try to like budget out things throughout the week if I saw that something was due ahead of time. So if I got like a certain deadline done, like I got this much done like this week, I'm gonna have like Pokemon time, or I'm gonna have like video game time, or like I also read like some books. That was really what really helped me personally.
Was it the content of the books or just having the escape there?
Yes, both.
Both. Okay. Yes.
I got like some books that I just really enjoyed reading, and it was also just the idea of like, okay, now I have time to like disassociate and listen to music that I truly love.
Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have any? Oh, okay, Micah.
I definitely want to echo what Caleb and Kat have shared, and just also like a big part of it for me, and it was learning to anticipate both that things being online just takes more energy for me. And some it makes things more accessible in lots of ways, but it also takes more energy, and both things can be true at the same time. Um, and I had to learn because people have this way of being like, "Oh, it's online. It's easier, just like whatever." And I had to learn that that is the devil talking. Like that is not tr like no. Um, because I really internalized that. Oh, just do it. Oh, just go on. No, ma'am. No, I could not. I had to learn to set aside time the evening before that. Thank goodness it was on a Friday. Because I could like kind of go slow the rest of the day after that. And another part of it for me, as I've said before, was like finding ways to, even though it is online, intentionally take as much of it as I can off. You know, if and I still do this in work. I work for the University of New Hampshire, but live in Kentucky, so everything I do is virtual. But I have specific times scheduled into my calendar where I'm just doing things with my hands. I have printed out um things that I need to read or to go through. So that I can rest my eyes, I can rest my brain. I'm not constantly distracted and pulled in like 10 different directions. And so like whatever it is for you that helps you kind of unplug, to make sure you're being really intentional about that.
Thanks, Micah. Anyone else have anything before we move on?
Brooklyn in the chat says, I will say if you feel stressed or feel like you can't finish the online course, what I do is I will walk outside for a little bit.
That's good advice. Thank you, Brooklyn.
Rachel says, good to see you, Ella. And Kat says, good sleep and good meds and spin time as a reward. And,
Spend.
and
Sometimes
August, go ahead.
you want to explain what spin is? The
Kat,
SP is for
Do you want me
spend.
to?
Oh, well, if, if you'd like, yes.
Uh, well, I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I don't know.
no, no,
So it's
you're welcome to join us,
okay.
Kat. Of
Told you
course.
I don't shut up and interrupt. That is time with your special interests. So it is the thing that you can hyper focus on willingly and not have to force yourself to do so. And I almost kind of feel like sometimes it's like me, like a dolphin sleeping, where it's only one side of your brain at the time. So you can give your brain a rest and a recharge.
Thank you, Kat. I like to call them specialized interests. It sounds a little more professional.
You're correct.
I'm
I'm going to
allergic to
adopt
I'm
that.
allergic to special.
Valid.
Trying to get that started. Anyways, thank you.
And
Oh,
August,
yes, August.
August in the chat says, thank you, Micah and Caleb. Turn it back to you, Bev.
All right. Um, the next question I'm going to ask you is, what is something that you learned during your Lynn Fellowship that has stuck with you? Morgan?
Yeah, something that stuck with me and something that I've learned is learning about other disabilities. Like before Lind, I obviously had friends that had different different disabilities, but I didn't really understand them. I was kind of really focused on because I didn't know about really all the things with my disabilities. So I was kind of focused on those. But after going or doing the LIN program, I understand a lot more about the other different disabilities and um, understand a lot of my or understood a lot of my friends more in their disabilities.
That's very cool. Thank you. Micah, was there anything for you that really stood out in particular?
Yes, I learned a lot from the curriculum, of course. Um, and I think I, how do I say this? I got to learn in real time that that I'm always learning, but so is every single person as well. And I got a lot of practice in giving grace and in how to talk to people who just don't know what you know yet. Without making lots of conclusions about who someone is. Um, I got to learn and practice a lot about patience. Um, and I think in a way it helped me also learn, like in a broader sense, what Morgan was talking about. Like I got to understand a lot more about disability and about people and about especially non-disabled people who work in disabled in the disability community. Um, like kind of from beyond the scope, like outside of just my own lived experience. And that was really, really valuable. So I learned a lot from the curriculum, but I think the biggest things that I took away were really how to learn and how to uh, collaborate with other people, especially people who certain forces would have us believe that we're at odds when we're not at odds. They just don't know what they don't know yet.
Thank you. That was deep. Six, what stood out to you as something that you held on to from your Lind?
To speak up for what I need and to not back down when asking for needed accommodations. If I know it's going to be a shit show, if I don't get that accommodation, I need to step up for myself and kind of make it happen.
Wow, all the hearts are floating up here. Everybody loved that comment, Six. So thank you very much. And it was good to see you grow in your advocacy that way. Caleb, what's your big takeaway from the Lind?
I learned a lot about myself as a person going through because I still am in my formative years of growing my identity, but I really learned a lot about myself as who I am as an advocate and person. But another thing I really learned was all of the resources that really are available. Like I learned about like occupations I didn't really know about, even though I went through them when I was younger. Like I learned a lot about like occupational therapy and stuff like that, and like that kind of perspective. And I didn't know a lot about it, even though I grew up a lot in OT, even though my handwriting still sucks. So sorry for anyone who has my signature. And there was also just the ability to learn how to implement resources and the ability to know how to collaborate to make sure a lot of what Micah said is learning how to almost meet in the middle and learn how to find where you agree on things.
Great point. Thank you. Yes, I think the interdisciplinary nature of the Lind is my absolute favorite thing. Getting to learn from uh, so many different disciplines that I had didn't study myself, and finding out about the different values and how the different policies that are followed is really enlightening. I wish we had even more disciplines. I want a sociologist, I want an anthropologist to come in and talk about disability. But For now, I believe we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's 1:55, so let's come back at 2 and we will continue from there. That was quick. We're doing really well on time, so I want to encourage people to continue putting questions and comments in the chat. It seems like we're going to have plenty of time to address those. Let's get started back with Morgan. And we're going to talk about accommodations now. Morgan, did you request any accommodations while you were in the land? And did you have any trouble getting the things that you needed to successfully complete the work?
So I did have accommodations. I had a scribe, I guess you can say, because Caleb, just like you, my handwriting is awful. So, especially if I feel rushed. So I had a scribe. Her name was Julie. I believe she also works at HDI, and me and her would meet before and after class, and she'd also sit with me in the classroom just to make sure I'm not missing any assignments, um or if there were assignments before or after that were due, then we'd meet in my office and work on that a little bit. So that was a big accommodation. And then also um, Caroline, Caroline Gooden, and of course Bev for um, answering any questions I may have, or if I needed help with anything. So thank y'all for helping me if I had any questions or other accommodations.
Thanks, Morgan. Micah, did you request any accommodations or use any while you were in the program?
I did. We had one group project where wires just kind of kept getting crossed and communication was not happening really well. And I felt bad for letting people in a group down because I have also been the person in a group where other folks aren't like doing things and you're doing everything. And I felt really bad. So I reached out and asked to do a project on my own. So I wasn't holding anybody up. Nobody was holding me up. We could kind of both, the thing that was we were all struggling with, some of which was definitely executive dysfunction on my part, um, wouldn't keep getting in the way. And that was like the one like really formal accommodation that I really asked for, I think. But then as I've talked about, the other thing that I consider in hindsight an accommodation that helped me um complete the Lynn Fellowship was just how um like Morgan said, how responsive and available that Dr. Gooden and Bev both were for me whenever I had a question, wherever something bothered me, whenever as I mentioned, I needed a lot of flexibility. That was probably the other thing I would call a formal accommodation, was that there was a lot of flexibility there for me to get things done when I could. Um, and then also Bev attended a lot of classes with me when I was nervous that discussion would be hard or be uh that I might be the lone person out as a self-advocate voice. Bev never let that happen to me. Bev always was there. Um, Even if it was just to be a witness or to be somebody to debrief with afterward. I spent a lot of time talking through things with Bev and Dr. Gooden.
None of these panelists have been paid by me for all of these compliments, and they must stop now. Okay. Thank you. 6, without mentioning my name, tell me about the accommodations that you did or didn't use in the land.
Unnamed person helped me debrief after every session, and But otherwise, Lynn provided me with a support person to help with the coursework and system navigation. They did that on their own without me asking for it. They could see that I was overwhelmed and needed help. I greatly appreciated Kai, the support person that was provided for me. I greatly appreciated their help, and I really could not have completed the program without it. I absolutely would have dropped out of Lind within that first month without Kai's help. But I also did ask for a dedicated support person to go with me to the Lynn conference in Washington, D.C., and was denied. They did arrange for another Lynn student to help me a bit, but she helped me through the airport and we stayed in the same hotel room. But she was there also for herself and could not stay with me the whole time. I was absolutely overwhelmed being in a strange city by myself. I spent the majority of the trip sobbing, just trying to orient myself to this new environment. It was an almost wholly awful experience. I broke all the way down on the next to last day and begged them to just get me home. They did get me an earlier flight, but that's the reason why I think if there's an accommodation that I need to have, I need to ensure that I have it.
Thank you, Six, for your honesty there and the emotion behind it. I really respect you a lot for the way that you stand up for yourself. And sometimes we still don't get what we need. But thank you for coming back and continuing to teach us more and more about accommodations. Caleb, how about you? Did you use any accommodations?
You didn't tell me not to say your name, so I'm going to say your name. You helped me a lot, Bev. And
It's my
that was
job.
so that was a really Bev was honestly a really big support for me like throughout a major part of this. Uh but one of the biggest accommodations was I couldn't drive anywhere because I didn't have a license at the time. So it was a lot of me it was a lot of me like it was a lot of me saying like I need to go like I needed people to drive me to different places. It was mainly my parents. Thank God they had free time. And that was one of the biggest instances of having to need accommodations in that regard. Um, but that was mainly the biggest one. But there was a time when I was reaching out for, I believe it was, we had to sort of have some sort of conference or give like a presentation or otherwise for one of our projects. And they were very accommodating because I thought that I was going to have it done in time. But the person that I contacted wasn't reaching back out to me. So I contacted Dr. Womack and Dr. Bauer and asked, and like I was freaking out. I was like, can I please change it to something else like that I can get together very quickly? And they were very accommodating and said that I was able to do a presentation for 988 on autism and its relation to suicide. So I was very thankful for that.
Thanks, Caleb. So, Morgan, what advice do you have for self-advocates who might be considering starting into the LEND program? Or what kind of things do you wish you had known before you started?
I would tell other advocates, don't be afraid or discouraged to try something new. Um, you know, with Lend, um, first of all, I was not a wouldn't say I was a bad student in school, but school wasn't my strong suit. And after high school, I told myself I was not going to, go to college or take a college course, but I did, and just to just to try something new, and um, it's helped me a lot. And then also, um, don't be afraid to ask questions or ask for any accommodations you may need.
Good advice. Thank you. Micah, do you have any advice for would-be LEND fellows?
I just had a brain fart. I'm trying to put my words back together. Uh, be persistent, but also recognize when it's time to be patient, um, and let people be in their own learning processes and things as well. Um, and prioritize. You don't have to solve every advocacy problem all at one time, and you don't have to do it all today. Um, go into things with an open mind. Um, and I think like the biggest thing that I learned and would encourage other self-advocates to do is try to learn like discernment of when it's time to be persistent and when it's time to be patient. When you're getting an accommodation that you are not getting an accommodation that you need, it's time to be persistent. Kat mentioned that we've got accommodations that she didn't even know existed in the chat. And honestly, like my whole accommodation discovery process was just being very loudly and openly needy without having all the solutions. And just hoping that people would work with me, and luckily that they did. And I find that that's been a pattern that people are more often than not willing to do that, um, in life, even beyond the Lind. Um, and I wouldn't have achieved that without the combination of persistence and patience, without, I'm pushing to get my needs met, but I'm understanding that the people aren't my enemies. The systems that are making these hard to get my needs met are the enemies, not the people.
Hmm, great point. Thank you. How about you, Six? Have you any advice?
Speak up for and hold fast to any accommodations that you actually need. Don't back down. Don't destroy yourself trying to please others and be what you are not.
Well said. Thank you. Caleb, can you add anything to that?
It was very terrifying for me at first, and it was something I had to get over, but I would not be afraid to reach out to anyone you're interested in collaborating with. One of the best things about the Lend cohort was the fact that like you can make all of these different kinds of connections. What really helped me was the ability for me to reach out and able to collaborate with all these different perspectives and people who helped me grow as a person and as an advocate, and even as someone who is now in graduate school. So it was very terrifying for me, but that's the best advice that I could give is like, don't be afraid to reach out and interact with your cohort or interact with the professors and faculty.
Great. That was the first mention we've had of the importance of the connections you can make through this, and they really are very substantial. Thank you. Do we have anything to read from the chat?
We do. We have a question from Ella. Speaking of HDI, what are some places or work offices that made you accommodate while in public? For example, when I go to bingo at my local supermarket, the person who announces the numbers on the cards, he pauses in between the breaks and gives a movement break, like bathroom breaks. And sometimes whenever I go, I usually go to the bathroom or wander around Whole Foods.
Okay, so I'm not sure if there was a question there about maybe how people get trained to do that, or how some businesses decide to be accommodating like that and how some don't. But I've definitely observed that myself, especially at places that have never heard of such a thing as people with disabilities. Was there anything anybody else wanted to respond about that?
In the chat, Stacy says, "Bravo to all these panelists." Kat in the chat says, "Y'all are mentioning some accommodations I didn't even know were options. Get ready, Dr. Womack and Dr. Bauer." Kat adds in the chat, "God, I hate airport. I hate airports. I have to take calm down meds, and whoever I'm with has to be in charge."
I hear that.
August August says, "Thank you, Six. I know the feeling." Laura says, I think we can all agree that Bev is the absolute best. Anna has a comment. Anna says, I couldn't go to the kickoff for our own lend cohort because the only options required driving for longer than I could manage safely with my chronic illness. I'd love to talk about how we can make the physical requirements of presenting, traveling, etc. more accessible for the self-advocates. I know I was a unique case because I live an 8-hour drive from campus, but I miss being able to participate because of the lack of accessibility. It would be awesome to work on what are the physical needs of the self-advocates to ensure they can all participate.
Such an excellent point. Um, when you have a student who's living 8 hours from campus, it is not accessible when you have in-person only classes. So ours have always been hybrid. Um, there are big advantages to having people there in person, but they don't outweigh, the opportunity to have everyone in the class who wants to be there. Thank you for that.
August says, Bev, come join our Len too. Ha ha.
You can invite me as a guest. I'll be happy to come and talk.
Micah says, every Len needs a Bev.
Okay, enough. Enough, or I'm calling it quits. Um, okay, next. I'm going to hand you a magic wand next and say, you can change anything you want about the Lind for the future. What would you change? Morgan?
Um, I don't really have anything to change. I had someone to help me. I had people to answer my questions if I had any questions or needed help with anything. So me personally, I wouldn't change anything.
Wouldn't change a thing. Okay. Right. You know your grades are already turned in and there's no more paychecks coming. So but
Yeah.
thank you for that. Micah, what would you change?
The biggest thing for me when my cohort ended and we did our kind of little exit thing, was I remember asking for more like connection between all the things on the curriculum. Like there is a part of the Lynn that is so wonderful and so appealing and so awesome, is that it's interdisciplinary and that that has a lot of aspects of it that are kind of choose your own adventure. There are lots of different practicums to choose from. There are lots of different ways you can go about doing certain projects and things. There are lots of different things you can focus on. But I found that sometimes like a little overwhelming, that there wasn't some kind of general like through line or like thesis or kind of cohering idea. It was just like, look at all these services that there are. And it was like, this is exactly what I signed up to learn, but oh my goodness. Um, can we have a little bit more of a like advocacy kind of bent to our curriculum or kind of like how as all of, because, you know, most classes are not, I don't think there's any class that is wholly self-advocates, but every single person who comes to a class is someone who is passionate about being an advocate as well as a professional serving people with disabilities. And that said, that is what I think I would change. I would have a little bit more of a disability community lens, and some kind of through line idea to bring it all together a little bit more, to make it less overwhelming and to help it kind of all stick together in your brain instead of just like all these different things that like I know I forgot so many valuable things, um because it was just so much.
Right, right. I feel like when I try to think about it all, my brain is like zooming out, 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 out. It's such a big picture, and they're really, I can't imagine how to create a framework where everything really fit together, you know? That's
Yeah,
just
or
not the way
even
it
if we just equipped, so like one of my favorite things through the whole thing was when you held a few sessions on the philosophy of autism and disability. And even just giving folks like that kind of foundation or like a moment of like, let's learn how to learn or how to think about her. Let's just interrogate where we're all coming from. Self-advocates and parents come here wearing their kind of perspective on all of this on our sleeves. But everybody else sort of gets a pass because they get to say, I'm a professional, I've studied really hard. All of this stuff is taught in a college class, so it's like airtight. When that's not true, I work in research. Knowledge is always growing and evolving. And so I think like even just taking a moment in the beginning to get like really honest about that would benefit everybody.
excellent point. Thank you. Six, what do you think?
I really thought I was there to share my experience being a person with autism. I expected to be given time to speak and share my lived experience with every presentation. It's true that I was allowed to do that, but it wasn't sought out. It wasn't factored into the class time. It wasn't on the syllabus. I didn't understand why I was present at all for much of the time. I was just there. I felt useless and patronized, not in a mean way, just in a I wasn't being utilized. I was just there getting a check, it seemed.
Okay, so you would have liked to have had opportunity to contribute more. Thank you.
I thought that was going to be my role, that's the reason why I was there. I didn't understand why I would be there without every single presentation having a chance to speak on it from my perspective.
Yeah, I understand. Um, I see Micah is responding to that, and we're doing well on time, so it's fine if you want to respond to what another panelist is saying from here on out. Please just raise your hand and do that. Would you like to say that out loud, or
Yeah, I can say it. And also before I do, I just want to uplift that August Romeo, one of the other self-advocates from Stony Brook, also agreed. And shared sometimes when speaking out, we get easily dismissed too. And I also had that experience. It got better, but I've had that experience in so many other places. But then I shared that I really agreed with everything that you were sharing, Six. And it felt like the class was like structured in a way where professional perspectives were focused on and highlighted and given a certain like weight or credibility, and as self-advocates or like self-advocate experiences or family perspectives didn't get that same like this is what we're doing today until myself and a couple other people started really being like, hey, what are we doing here? And it sounds like you kind of had to do that as well, and it can be really hard.
okay? So what I'm hearing is it would be good to have more clarity from the beginning about what the role is, and also that it would be good to have a larger participatory role for the self-advocate and the family advocate. Um, was there anything anybody else wanted to add there? We can go on to the next question.
I mean, I guess if I may, just to sort of like
Sure.
underscore that point a little bit, it's not at least for me, like Six said, like there is this element of like people with lived experience really do have something to teach you, and it is if you have the opportunity and someone who's really willing to be open and vulnerable with you, you should treat that as a gift and make room for that because we've had lots August Romeo said, we get dismissed a lot and have lots of reasons to not be willing to do that and not be so free with our very personal experiences and information. But even that aside from the very individual kind of perspective on it, self-advocate and family movements have a storied history that have shaped the service systems that we currently exist within and continue to shape it. And so it's not entirely like realistic to treat those as if they are something other or unprofessional. They're
Mhm.
just not they're just not by the same avenues that we typically identify as professional.
That makes sense. All right, that was a lot of good information. Thank you all. Now let's talk about what are y'all doing now that you've graduated from Lind. I hope it made a difference, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what kind of things y'all are working on.
Um, so with me, I'm still working at the Human Development Institute, which I love, in several different projects. And one of them is we're facilitating something called bingo size, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're playing bingo and also learning about exercise. So the last one we've done it was focused on diabetes, which the um, the crowd, I guess, was not what we expected. We either had one or none, no people show up, so we had to kind of put a hold on that one. But I think we're going to do like a Christmas themed one, and also again with diabetes. So working on that, working at HDI, um, still doing Special Olympics, um, and presentations and stuff, and all doing all of that, keeping busy while taking care of a new puppy we got. So
Hey,
juggling every everything.
great. I know you do tend to stay busy and involved in all kinds of things. Congratulations on the new puppy.
Thank you.
Micah, what are you working on these days?
Well, I am working Cat. Uh, Cat was curious about the puppy, I think. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I work for the University of New Hampshire as a research and training assistant. So I spend about half of my time working on several research studies, um, one of which I get to apply a lot of what I learned in Lind, because we are creating and currently halfway through piloting a healthcare advocacy training program that is by and for people with IDD. Um, so that's going really cool, and I'm proud of that. Um, I continue to try to organize around the community, and like Morgan said, I'm doing it all while trying to take care of, in my case, a little guy. Um, some of you who attended last month's session got to hear about him. But I have a 6-month-old. Um, so yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and the other half of my job is that I train direct support professionals, mobile crisis responders, and other clinicians that work closely with people with IDD about IDD and mental health.
Thank you. Six, what are you up to these days?
Well, first, I want to make it clear that my participation in Lind was life altering. When I first started Lind, like I was agoraphobic and didn't leave my house. And because I participated in Lind and had the encouragement and support of Bev and Dr. Gooden, and had all these projects that Kai and them helped me with to complete, like I got a new confidence in myself that I didn't even know I had. I didn't know that I could do these things. So participating in Lind was really life altering. And since then, I created a graphic novel on situational mutism called Verbal Ain't Best, and another one on wedding called You're in Luck, and both of them are on my website, and I'll put it for free. I'll put it in the chat box if you'd like to see it. And right now I'm working on a graphic memoir called Wall-Eyed.
Cool. Micah, did you want to respond to that before? Oh, that hand was for something else, probably. I get my signals crossed sometimes. Um, so we'll go on to Caleb then.
I am currently working on getting my doctorate in psychology currently. It is a lot of work, but I really hope it's going to be very rewarding. I am also currently working on a giant resource in order to help autistic people who are experiencing suicidal ideation. I'm gathering a bunch of resources in order to help people learn about about how to uh, about what professionals can do to make suicide prevention more accommodating for the autistic community because a lot of methods that we use are not accommodating. Oh, I'm in what kind of psychology? I'm in a PsyD. So it's very therapy based, not a PhD, a PsyD. Um, it is, I'm doing my best to make sure how can you create a safety plan? How can you basically a lot of things that can be used in order to best help the autistic community when they are at their lowest moment, and how professionals can also help people who can help the autistic community. There we go. My words worked. Yay.
Yay. Such an important issue, and it's amazing the site that you're making. I can't wait for it to be public because it's just really impressive. Um, my next question is about what have you done? What are you doing? What plans do you have for the future? Which some of you have already kind of hit on this "what are you doing now" thing. But does anybody have anything to add that they're looking forward to? What's coming up for you?
I do not have anything on this one.
Okay, no future plans.
Just hopefully keep doing what I'm doing and work at HDI.
All right, then what's the puppy's name?
His name is Pope. And for those that don't know, I named him Pope because of the basketball coach. So that's his name. His real name is Pope Kingston, but only because I couldn't decide between those two names. So that's his full name.
Dr. Bauer, can you catch us up on the chat?
We have a comment from Anna, and Anna says, our regular didactics are virtual, which is why I signed up. I just was sad that I didn't get to have a hybrid option for the bonding opening weekend. Just for full clarity, it was only that weekend I couldn't go to, but I was sad I couldn't get a hybrid option for that one when I was in a severe flare that week. As has been mentioned, August says yes, 6, totally agreed. August also says sometimes when speaking out we easily get dismissed too. Ella says, speaking of disabilities, what kind of celebrities, actors have you ran into or spoke to, and what condition has he or she had?
This sounds like it might be somebody's specialized interest. Have any of us met anyone famous with a disability? Maybe not. Sorry.
I met Kim Peek once.
Oh, cool.
I do take that back. I did get to do a kind of a Q&A session with the people from Crip Camp, if you've seen that Netflix documentary. So that was pretty cool. That's probably the
Wow.
only person with disability.
That's very cool.
I'm glad you said that because I've met Judy Heumann and Alice Wong. May they both rest in
Mm.
peace. Um,
And also, if animals count, I did get to meet Winter the dolphin from Dolphin Tale, but that's about it.
Of course it counts.
Kat says, thank you for advocating for current and future Lend trainees. Micah says, yes, I really agree with this. Professional perspectives really got their time in waiting class, but self-advocate and family folks didn't quite get that focus in the same way in my cohort either. Anna says, yes, we've been talking about should we develop a send talk of our own just to gently push back on let us give our own response to some of what we've heard in these didactics for later in the year for our cohort.
Mhm. Mhm.
Micah says, I like this organizing approach to solving the problem. I think it's a great idea. Kat says, yes, Micah, it's exhausting to just exist in academia. Being vulnerable in our own experience of sharing our perspectives not going well takes a lot of energy. Micah says, it really and truly does. I often feel like we're early for a party that might not start for a good while yet.
Mhm.
Kat says, that's a really great way to put it. I'm borrowing your metaphor. Kat says, show us the baby. Morgan says, I got you. Uh, Ella says, I'm volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House and doing Special Olympics with Morgan Turner. August says, loved your slides with pictures of your family last time, Micah. Micah says, thank you so much. August says, sounds so cool. Six dropped a website into the chat, www.regardinggruber at wordpress.com. Ella says, whoop whoop. Cat says, so cute. Brooklyn says, our dog is so cute. Caroline says, students are the best part of the Lend experience, and you can see here why that is. Treasure each one of you. Micah says, Morgan, what a gorgeous puppy. Morgan says, thank you so much. Natalie says, I graduated high school with Big Nick. I believe he is pretty big on YouTube. Ella says, oh, I know one. Next week, we are going to be hearing from Travis Freeman.
I had not heard of Travis Freeman until today, when I learned that he was a football player who lost his vision. Is that correct?
That is correct. And
All right.
Travis is a Kentuckian with a disability living in Southeast Kentucky.
Awesome. Um,
August
go ahead.
August says, are there any self-advocates y'all look up to? Hmm.
I'm gonna say Bev.
I'm going to put a long list in this chat box, and somebody better be going and reading some of these people's names that are not me. Um, I'll provide a list, and I bet Micah has a couple too.
I do. Well, there's one name I feel like I'm not allowed to say. But there's also someone else who's here, Aaron. I look up to Aaron. Um, I look up to a lot of self-advocates who communicate in non-normative ways, like Jordan Zimmerman and Hari Srinivasan. Um, I look up to a lot of I have a list. I should make a list of names too. Let me look at my uh I look up to my friend Amanda Stahl,
Mm.
who is another self-advocate and an incredible social worker and community organizer here in Louisville, Kentucky. And just her general approach to self-advocacy and like disability justice and change overall that is so driven by care, um, and just like making space for people to be exactly who and how they are right now. Um, those are probably the biggest that come to mind immediately in terms of folks that I know directly.
Mm, great. Okay, does that take care of the chat?
Six says, could the list be emailed to us?
Sure, you can do that.
Cat added a self-advocate.
Oh, yeah. Good one. Monique Botha. All right. Um, so yes, I will write some down when we're finished with this and send the list out to six and anyone else who wants it. I have just one more question. Let's talk about why we want self-advocacy in a program like this. The purpose of the LEND is to train professionals who are going to be working with folks with disabilities in the future in all different kinds of fields. Um, why do we include a self-advocate and a family member in this group? And for anybody who's considering that they might like to join, the self-advocate and the family advocate do not have to be enrolled at UK or any of the other universities or colleges. You do not have to have a degree. Um, and we will be looking for more people probably in the future. So keep an eye out. But let's talk a little bit about the importance of self-advocacy and maybe even family advocacy if you want to talk about that. Why do we have those positions in the LEND? Why are they important? Morgan?
Um, well, I think everyone needs self-advocates in anywhere. But for Lynn, I feel like it's a learning experience both ways. Learn about that person and their disability, but also that person, that advocate can learn too, but also maybe that advocate can teach others about something that other people don't know.
Yes, thank you. Micah, do you think it's important to have self-advocates in the LEND?
I think it's vital to giving people an honest, realistic education about neurodevelopmental disabilities. And I also think it's essential to educating and preparing cohorts of providers who are really genuinely ready to go out into whatever profession it is that they have chosen and serve people with disabilities in a humane way and push for continued progress in our field. Um, I think that self-advocates and people with lived experience, as parents or caregivers, have a lot to teach folks who have only studied academically, or only worked professionally in these communities. And I think that it is important that folks are there even when it's not comfortable for the non-disabled people in the room and things that they're saying. I have gotten some feedback at my work that it is challenging for med students who are working on becoming psychiatrists to hear me describe myself as a survivor of the psychiatric system,
Hmm.
which asterisks, I still use the services, okay? I still use mental health services. I just also had some really dangerous experiences. Um, and people who want uh a big thing that I have underscored today is the importance of patience. It's important because everybody who comes to this field comes to it generally with their heart in the right place. There's a few exceptions, as there are to everything, but most people come to the disability field in whatever profession or perspective they choose because they know somebody or they care about somebody and they want to help. But those if you don't have like the lived experience, you have like a very decidedly different idea about disability than someone who has lived it or lived very close to it. And so, even with the best intentions, you can do harm if you don't, if you have not spent time listening to people who have really lived it through these services, really lived in these communities, really lived this experience. And a core tenet of disability justice is that those who are the closest to a problem are also often closest to the solutions because we're the ones that deal with it every day. We're not just interested in it, we're living it.
Thanks, Micah. 6?
I have not prepared an answer for this, so be aware of that, but I'm going to try to answer. Um, I think there's this idea that autistic children don't grow up, and that when adults with autism present, that we're kind of seen as either we didn't have that much of a problem as a kid, so therefore our experience isn't worthwhile. Um, but I've been in the systems that these people are about to work in, and I know the experience of receiving the services or being denied the services and what that can do to a life. So that just seems important. Okay, love you, bye.
Thank you, 6. Well said. Caleb, you can have the last word here.
That scares me. You shouldn't have phrased it like that. Now I'm
You know you're
scared.
not going to
Okay,
get the last word because Kat is here.
perfect. Thank you. Please take it away from me, Kat, as soon as I finish. And so, uh, honestly, everything that I've experienced has been said by everyone else, that we are honestly a crucial and I would say fundamental part of this system. And I remember just I think when you are open-minded and are able to listen to our perspective, you can get just such crucial information. I think that like just having our perspective, I remember when we were doing journal club and when we were doing like case studies, when I would say things that other people did not experience because it was something that I had personally experienced or something that I could relate to. I think, and to have someone I was going to say the team, but in the cohort who is able to relate to that and able to tell you what it's like to navigate these systems, what it's like to experience these emotions. I think it really does broaden your perspective in a way that is crucial to grow not only as a professional, but I would say as a person.
Thank you, Caleb. Very well said. Do we have more questions and comments? We have about 12 minutes left.
We have a comment from Anna in the chat. Anna says, "Thank you, Micah, for naming survivor of the medical system. I also have a story where my disabled, non-speaking family member was severely harmed, nearly fatally, by medical care. It has informed how I speak about it, and I've also been told that be careful how you talk about it. It can upset others." Micah responded, "I feel very strongly that those who are upset by hearing these kinds of things are the people who need to hear it the most." Anna says, "Yes, this is the single most important reason I joined the Lend. I want that to not happen to anyone else the way it happened to my sibling and the challenges I've had getting care because I don't communicate well." Anna says, "It is why my whole lens study is going to be around biases, barriers, and potential risk in seeking medical care for comorbid conditions as neurodivergent disabled folks." Micah says, "I'm so glad that you're doing that. Keep pushing and keep building a body of evidence. As a researcher, it's that data, that evidence that underscores our points as advocates. I am very slowly writing a grant proposal to do a small study on self-advocate participant experiences and ableism in LEN cohorts." Kat says, I've been abused by the system, and I wasn't diagnosed until later in life. We have to recognize that children, especially disabled children, are not given the opportunity to engage in qualitative research.
Mm.
This is a rabbit hole I could go down, not as often as we, or almost never. Um, but there is progress beginning to be made. And that even adults with disabilities, particularly folks who live under guardianship, face similar barriers to being included in research. But that's one thing I'm really proud of about my work is that we've created some assent instead of consent procedures that allow us to include more people.
Please send me information on that if you've got the spoons, because I'm very, very interested
I
in
would,
that. I think we're smart enough to ask kids questions and get that information and do it. I feel like people act a lot dumber than they are in research a lot of the times, just doing the same thing over and over again. Like, we're smart enough as human beings to do it different.
I agree. And I will share that with you.
Anna says, Micah, we need to talk. Micah just replied with Micah's email address. Anna says, please, I want to include those perspectives in my study. And I'm really working on it being participatory action research and open to all communication perspectives.
I'm very interested in that too, Anna. If you wouldn't mind to send me some information on it as well. Any final thoughts from anybody? We have another email address or link in the chat.
We have another August says, fellow self-advocates would love to keep up with your work, so feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or at my email address. Kat says, thanks for letting me talk, even though I'm not part of the panel. I love getting to hear from my people. Anna says,
Thank you.
I'd love any who are interested to be reviewers of my PAR interview protocols and or eventually participants. I want to document exactly what Micah is talking about, survivor of air.
All right, so there are a bunch of emails and links going into the chat. Be sure and save those if you wanted to contact some folks from this panel later on. And I want to thank you again for all being here and the participation, not just from our panelists, but from so many advocates who also came. And if anybody is considering maybe Lind Fellowship for your future, you know where to find us now. And I hope that we've presented a fairly good picture of what this one aspect of it is like. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this conversation.
Be
Yeah,
well.
thanks.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you to our wonderful interpreters.